Your tire pressure sensor makes one dangerous promise without ever saying a word. It makes you feel like someone is watching your tires for you. As long as the warning light stays off, you assume everything must be fine. That feeling is exactly what traps so many drivers. Because the sensor does not protect you from every tire mistake, it only reacts to part of the problem, and usually much later than people imagine. Sounds safe, doesn't it? That is why this false sense of security quietly ruins tires, wastes money, and puts drivers at risk while they still believe they are doing everything right. The mistake starts the moment you treat the sensor like a complete tire safety system, instead of what it really is, a limited warning tool. It does not inspect tread wear for you. It does not study how your tires are aging. It does not tell you if all 4 tires are wearing evenly. It does not tell you if your pressure routine makes sense for your actual driving. And it definitely does not tell you whether your tires are losing life every single week because of a habit that feels normal. That is the first fatal mistake the sensor hides from people. It makes them trust silence. Mistake number 1, believing no warning means no problem. That belief destroys more tire life than most drivers realize. A tire can be underperforming long before the dashboard says anything. It can be wearing badly. It can be running in a way that reduces efficiency. It can be slowly creating uneven contact with the road. And still, the light stays off. Why? Because the system is not designed to catch every early-stage pressure problem that steals tire life. It is there to alert you when pressure drops enough to become more serious. That is not the same as telling you your tires are healthy. That is not the same as telling you your tread is being protected. A quiet dashboard is not a clean bill of health. It is just silence. And silence is what makes people relax when they should be paying attention. Mistake number 2, assuming the sensor shows exact real-world tire health. Many drivers look at the system and think they are seeing the full truth. They are not. The sensor only gives you a narrow slice of the picture. Tire health is bigger than pressure alone. A tire can have a pressure reading that seems acceptable and still be wearing the wrong way. A tire can still have problems with heat, load response, contact pattern, and long-term wear that the system does not explain. That is why some people are shocked when they inspect their tires and discover damage or wear patterns they never expected. They trusted the dashboard more than the rubber touching the road. Have you ever assumed the screen knew more than your own inspection? That assumption is expensive. Because once people trust the sensor too much, they stop looking closely. They stop checking the tread. They stop comparing the tires. They stop noticing changes in feel, resistance, noise, and wear. They stop asking questions. And that is when small problems gain time to grow. Mistake number 3, waiting for the light instead of checking pressure manually. This is one of the most common habits drivers fall into. They stop measuring tire pressure for themselves because they assume the vehicle will warn them if something is wrong. That sounds convenient. It sounds modern. It sounds efficient. But convenience is exactly what creates blind spots. The sensor is not there to replace your own pressure checks. It is not there to make manual verification unnecessary. It is a backup warning, not a full replacement for real attention. If you wait for the light, you are already choosing a delayed response. And that delay matters. Tire pressure does not need to drop to a dramatic level before it starts affecting wear, comfort, efficiency, and road behavior. A tire can already be working below its best range while the system stays quiet. That means your tires may be losing life during the period when you feel safest. Strange, isn't it? The moment people feel most protected is often the moment they are paying the least attention. That is why drivers who only react to the sensor often realize the truth too late, when the tread has already paid the price. Mistake number 4, using the same pressure all the time because the sensor is quiet. This is where habit becomes dangerous. Drivers pick one familiar number, use it constantly, and trust the sensor to tell them if anything is seriously wrong. But tire pressure is not a superstition. It is not a lucky number. Your vehicle faces changing conditions: temperature swings, passenger weight, cargo, road surface, driving speed, commuting patterns, and the natural behavior of the tire itself over time. A pressure routine that ignores all of that is not smart maintenance. It is lazy repetition disguised as confidence. The sensor makes this mistake easier because it creates a mental shortcut. If the system is calm, the driver stays calm. If the dashboard looks normal, the routine never gets questioned. And because the consequences build slowly, the damage does not feel dramatic enough to force reflection. The tires simply wear a little faster. They lose a little more life. The vehicle rolls a little less efficiently. Replacement comes earlier than it should. The driver blames the tire brand, the road, bad luck, almost anything except the pressure habit that kept slipping under the radar. Mistake number 5. Ignoring tire wear patterns because the sensor says nothing. This one is fatal because the tread often tells the truth long before the dashboard does. The wear pattern reveals whether the tire is living a healthy life or dying early. It reveals whether your routine is helping or hurting. It reveals whether the pressure you trust is actually producing the result you think it is. But most drivers do not inspect tread closely enough. They glance at the tires from a distance and assume everything is fine because nothing looks dramatic. That is not inspection. That is wishful thinking. The sensor cannot explain shoulder wear to you. It cannot explain why one tire is aging differently from the others. It cannot tell you whether repeated pressure habits are costing you tread life. That is why relying on the system while ignoring the wear pattern is one of the fastest ways to stay confused while your tires keep losing value. Mistake number 6. Believing the sensor removes the need to check tires cold. This mistake sounds small, but it creates a chain reaction. Real tire pressure management depends on how and when you check it. Tires change with temperature. They change with driving. They change after sitting. If you ignore that reality and trust the sensor to cover everything, you are surrendering one of the most basic parts of tire care. The system is not teaching you timing. It is not teaching you method. It is not teaching you discipline. And without those things, many drivers end up working from bad information without even realizing it. That is why so many people say, "But the sensor did not show a problem." Of course, it did not show everything. It was never designed to do everything. It cannot replace judgment. It cannot replace routine inspection. It cannot replace understanding. The danger begins when drivers expect the tool to do a job it was never meant to do. Have you ever trusted a system so much that you forgot to think beyond it? That is exactly what happens here. And then comes the most dangerous layer of all. Mistake number 7. Confusing warning technology with complete safety. This is the fatal illusion behind the entire system. Drivers start to believe that because the vehicle has a pressure sensor, tire-related risk is mostly under control. That belief changes behavior. It reduces caution. It reduces curiosity. It reduces the urge to manually inspect, measure, compare, and question. It makes people feel protected enough to stop doing the very things that actually protect tire life. And once that mindset settles in, every other mistake becomes easier. Manual checks happen less often. Wear patterns get ignored. Small losses stay hidden. Tire life fades silently. Technology helps, but it also changes human behavior. That is the part most drivers never think about. The sensor does not just provide information, it shapes confidence. And when confidence rises more than awareness, mistakes multiply. That is how drivers end up with uneven wear, worse fuel economy, early replacement costs, and tire problems that felt invisible until the bill arrived. The system did not lie to them directly, it did something more dangerous. It allowed them to assume too much. The truth is that your tire pressure sensor is useful, but limited. It is not your tire manager. It is not your tread analyst. It is not your maintenance brain. It is not your substitute for attention. The moment you forget that, the sensor starts hiding more than it reveals. It hides your overconfidence. It hides your neglected routine. It hides the growing gap between what the dashboard says and what the tires are actually experiencing on the road. That is why these 7 mistakes matter so much. Not because each one creates instant disaster, but because together they create a silent pattern of loss. Silent loss of tread, silent loss of fuel efficiency, silent loss of control quality, silent loss of money. And silent problems are always the easiest to ignore until they become expensive enough to force your attention. By then, the tire has already been paying for your assumptions 1 mile at a time. So ask yourself something simple. When was the last time you trusted the sensor more than the tire itself? When was the last time you checked pressure manually instead of waiting for the light? When was the last time you looked closely at the tread and asked whether the wear actually matched the story your dashboard was telling you? Those questions matter because the safest drivers are not the ones who trust warning systems blindly. They are the ones who understand the warning system's limits before those limits cost them. The sensor can help you, but it can also make you lazy if you let it. And that is the real danger. Not the light itself, but the mindset it creates. The belief that silence means safety. The belief that no warning means no loss. The belief that technology has already handled what still requires your own eyes, your own routine, and your own discipline. Once you break that illusion, you start seeing your tires differently. You stop waiting for obvious problems. You stop confusing convenience with control. You stop handing your tire life over to a system that was never designed to protect all of it. And that is when things begin to change. Because the moment you stop treating the tire pressure sensor like a perfect guardian, you start paying attention to what actually keeps tires alive longer. Manual checks, real observation, careful routines, and respect for what the tread is showing you. Most drivers never make that shift until they have already lost money. The smarter ones make it earlier, and the earlier you make it, the less your tires have to suffer in silence. If this made you rethink how much trust you put in your tire pressure sensor, stay with the channel. Because the most expensive tire mistakes are usually the ones drivers never realize they are making until it is far too late.